Namaste. Sometimes after I teach a yoga class, I'll have a concerned student come up to me afterwards and say something along the lines of, I'm such and such religion. Is it okay for me to practice yoga? And I'm glad they asked this. This is an important question, a big question. And I think a lot of the reason that yoga teachers avoid the more devotional aspects of a yoga practice is that they're trying to avoid this question because it's a sensitive topic, it's a big topic, and I will do my best to address it in this short video. The short answer is that no, yoga is not a religion. Whatever religion you are, that's fine. You can still practice yoga. Yoga will enhance religion, but kind of a longer story, a better answer is to follow. And I say this again, knowing it's a sensitive topic. I don't purport to be an expert on any religion, but just giving kind of the context of yoga within these religions, and also acknowledging that the historical data we have for this period of time that we're talking about is, lacking at best. So just putting this out there, hoping it deepens your understanding to some point. You don't have to agree with it, but I think it's important to frame the discussion this way. So there's three important things to think about in terms of this question. The first is that yoga, the practice of yoga, predates all organized religion. So if we look at the four main religions, the four most popular religions in the world today, Islam is about 1,400 years old. Now, Christianity, a little more than 2,000 years old. Buddhism, a little more than 2,500 years old. Hinduism is the oldest of the organized religions. And this is where it gets a little tricky because it uses some of the same source texts as yoga does, Bhagavad Gita, the Vedas. But at the very least, there's no reason to think that Hinduism predates the practice of yoga. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a bit. The second important point to note is that all these four main religions originate in the same part of the world, more or less. Somewhere between the Red Sea and the Mediterranean Sea on the west side to the Ganges River on the east side. All four of these main religions were founded in that area, and this is also the same area of the world where yoga was developed and spread. It was brought east, it's thought, to the Indus Valley, and that's where it started some 5,000 to 7,000 years ago. Potentially longer, the 5,000 to 7,000 years based on the written and archaeological data that we have, but a lot of yogis will say that it had been going on for a longer time, just passed down in oral tradition, and we just don't have a record of it. Hard to say, but at the very least, knowing that it's thousands of years older than most of the organized religions that we know of today. And it's also important to understand that the tools that yoga has are seen in each religion. This is why the question comes up, right? Because a student will see me bring my hands to Namaskar Mudra, and they'll think this is a prayer position. And that creates the resistance, the uh-oh, is this a religion? They'll hear me lead a chant, and that will evoke religious context. They'll hear me talking about certain philosophies of connection to a higher self, connection to a higher being, and that evokes the religion as well. And it should, because in my understanding, these religions all kind of evolved out of yoga, or at the very least used yogic tools to enhance their ceremonial aspects. So the third thing I'd like to talk about is how the kind of enlightened beings in each religion, the kind of founders of the philosophy that everyone follows, they all had a direct experience of God, right? Muhammad, Jesus, the Buddha. Hinduism's a little bit trickier. There's a lot of different ones. Well, I'll just say Krishna for the sake of argument, for just bringing one to the forefront. They all had this divine experience, whether you want to call it enlightenment or samadhi or whatever other experience you're calling it, a direct experience of God, a relationship with God that they cultivated in their own personal practice. So that's kind of the key to the difference between yoga and religions. So there is no, firsthand account from, Jesus or Muhammad of them, just writing a book like, here's my experiences, right? It's all someone else writing about them. And it makes sense that they would want to, after you have this experience, of the divine, you want to share it with others, and other people are recognizing these, wonderful, incredible, beings as, okay, they have certain powers, they have certain understanding that we don't, so we want to learn from them, we want to absorb this, and we want to share this with other people. So that makes sense for them to then write that down and then have that. And so the way that religions tend to work is then you have this script, this book of, the philosophy, how to follow it, and then it's kind of faith-based, right? You believe that this is true because this person was incredible. Lots of people witnessed all the miracles that they performed, and writing it down, passing it down. I believe it, you believe it too. Yoga does have its own philosophy, but it's talking about the philosophy in ways saying, like, this is the way we think it is, but don't take our word for it. Experience it for yourself. And here are the tools to have then that direct experience of the divine, similar to what Muhammad had or what the Buddha had or whatever it is. And they go on then to say, okay, if these tools aren't suitable for you, then here's another set of tools that you can use. And if that set of tools doesn't quite fit, then here's another set of tools. If that's too hard, here's another set of tools. And those are the paths of yoga. So the difference between bhakti yoga versus jnana yoga versus karma yoga versus hatha yoga, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There's these different paths suitable for different types of people. Use these tools, find this relationship yourself. And of course, the various religions use these tools as well and adopt them in their ceremonies because doing them, performing them, brings you closer to God as well. The chanting, the exchange of wisdom, it's a satsang in yoga, but readings in various religious ceremonies. These prayer beads are something that's used in every major religion. This is, comes from yoga. It's called japa mala, used to count and recite mantras. So all this is kind of, I guess what I'm getting at is these are all things that are more similar than they are different. There are differences, but these differences are less about the experience and more about, I believe, the way that they're recorded, because they're not recorded again by the person with the experience. They're recorded by people who are more fallible and can make mistakes and can bring their own lens, their own coloring, their own bias into what they're recording. And then, of course, beyond that, they get translated and retranslated after that. And then there's additional lenses and differences. And does this word mean this or this in this context? And that's challenging as well. But the core ideas, are the same. The philosophy in yoga that, the divine is within all of us and indeed in all living beings. Well, it's hard to hear that and not also think of the Holy Spirit in Christianity, right? This idea that the divine or God is within you, and it's a part of everything else too. So forth and so on. And Buddhism, I know some people will say it's more philosophical than religion because they're not thinking of God as a creative force more, but they're still reaching enlightenment through yourself. So finding this understanding through the divine within you. Again, semantics and differences, they exist, they're real. I'm not saying that they aren't there. Are they worth fighting wars about and getting to big arguments about? Probably not. But the important thing, just to recap, to understand, is that yoga is not a religion, but a series of tools that can be used in religious practices, no matter what religion you are, because we're all kind of going to the same thing, to a different path. Just like there's a different paths of yoga that I mentioned too, all these religions are different paths to this direct experience with God. And yoga is a set of tools that you can use to enhance that. And if you don't want to do the work of, the tools that they're saying, meditating for hours a day is not easy. Then you have, faith-based religion that can be a good way to enhance your understanding of the world and the divine and your relationship with it without, sacrificing too much of your own day-to-day life. But then, of course, in some religious practices, if you do them, as prescribed, then that's also taking up a big chunk of your time. So it's just, again, a different path. Whether you're using yoga, whether you're using one religion or another, or something outside of the four major religions, I can't possibly list them all, but those are the four that are far and away the largest ones in the world today, and all not quite as old as yoga, but have been around for a long time. So obviously there's something to them for people to have believed in them for this long. And just again, the way I see it, so many more similarities and differences, all paths to the same thing. So of course, whatever religion you are or aren't, you can practice yoga. Yoga will help you. Yoga is a tool. Yoga is a path. And there are many paths on yoga in which to follow to make sure that you're connecting in an authentic way to your spiritual nature. Thank you for listening. Namaste.